For years, the world looked at Jaafar Jackson and saw only a quiet nephew living in the long shadow of the king of pop. The boy who preferred golf clubs to microphones, the one who seemed determined to escape the family name. He was never the loudest Jackson, never the most famous, never the one anyone expected to carry the crown. Yet something about him always felt different. The resemblance that made people stop mid-conversation, the quiet intensity in his eyes, the way he moved when he thought no one was watching. Michael Jackson never said the words in public. He never gave an interview about his nephew. But years before his death, in a private moment only a handful of people ever heard, he made a quiet comment about Jaafar, a comment that now feels less like conversation and more like a prediction. Almost no one listened. Almost no one believed it mattered, until the day the world finally had no choice but to see what Michael had already seen. Chapter 1. The Boy Who Tried to Escape the Name. Jaafar Jeremiah Jackson was born on July 25, 1996, in Los Angeles, California, into a house that already knew how to make noise. His father was Jermaine Jackson, a founding member of the Jackson 5, the man who had once stood on stages beside Jackie, Tito, Marlon, and Michael while the world learned their names. His mother was Alejandra Genevieve Oaziaza, a fashion designer born in Bogota, Colombia, who brought another language, another culture, and another kind of quiet into a family that had spent decades living in public. They married in 1995. They separated in 2003. Through it all, their son grew up inside the long, crowded orbit of Havenhurst, the Encino compound where Jacksons came and went like weather. The house was never empty. Uncles passed through. Aunts arrived, cousins filled rooms, Jackie, Tito, Marlon, Randy, Janet, LaToya, Rebby. Managers sat at tables, musicians lingered in hallways, visitors treated the front drive like a stage entrance. From the outside, it looked like a fairy tale of access. From the inside, it was louder, denser, and more complicated than any photograph ever suggested. Jaafar's only full brother, Jermaine Jackson, was born in 2000. The rest of the sibling map stretched across different mothers and different households. In a family that large, attention was a scarce thing. Being born with the last name Jackson did not mean anyone was watching you. It often meant the opposite. The spotlight had already chosen its people. Jaafar did not chase it. While the world expected another Jackson performer, he chased fairways. As a boy, he wanted a golf career with a seriousness that did not look like a hobby. He worked on his swing. He studied the flight of the ball. He watched Tiger Woods the way other children in that house watched choreography. Golf asked for patience, precision, and a kind of private discipline that did not require an audience. The course did not care who his uncle was. The scorecard did not care about Motown, sequins, or the weight of a famous last name. That cleanliness mattered to him. It felt like a door out. Havenhurst could make a child feel both chosen and overlooked at the same time. The legends were in the next room. The history sat on the walls. The family name opened doors most people would never see and also closed other doors without warning. Jaafar lived inside that contradiction. He went to school. He drew. He noticed fashion. He traveled. He moved through ordinary teenage routines while the city's billboards, studios, and agencies hummed around him. Los Angeles was the entertainment capital of the world, and he was growing up in one of its most famous houses. Still, the life he pictured for himself was quieter. Morning light on grass, a bag of clubs, a game that rewarded control instead of spectacle. I was trying to outrun the bloodline. That is the part people later forgot. They looked at the nephew who would one day wear his uncle's clothes on a movie set and assumed the path had always been obvious. It had not. Jaafar did not grow up being drilled like the generation before him. No one stood over him at 4 years old and turned him into a product. The older Jacksons had been trained as if childhood itself were a rehearsal. He was left more alone than the public would have believed. Forgotten is a hard word, but it is not the wrong one. He lived inside the legend and still had to invent his own reason to walk into a room. The irony began early. The harder he ran toward a normal life, the more the family gift seemed to wait for him. A last name is not a costume a child can take off at the gate. It follows him onto the course. It follows him into a classroom. It follows him into every introduction. People heard Jackson and already had a story ready. Jaafar's story, at least in those years, was supposed to be different. He wanted fairways, not spotlights. He wanted a life that would not ask him to become a version of someone else. Around him the compound kept moving. Relatives arrived for holidays. Music leaked from rooms. The Jackson work ethic hung in the air even when no one was teaching it. His father had spent a lifetime inside the machinery of records, tours, and image. Through Jermaine, Jaafar inherited a direct line to Motown, Berry Gordy, and the golden age of American pop. Through his mother, he inherited Spanish, Colombian traditions, and a view of the world that stretched beyond Encino. That mix shaped him. It also gave him a place to stand slightly apart. He was a Jackson, yes. He was also the son of a woman who had come from somewhere else, and that difference mattered in a house where history could feel like a script already written. By the time he was old enough to understand the size of the name, he already understood its cost. Fame in that family was not only light, it was pressure, comparison, and the quiet knowledge that some people in the same bloodline had been broken by the very thing the public celebrated. Jaafar watched that from the edge of the room. He saw the uncles, the aunts, the cousins, the constant stream of people who wanted something from the house. He saw how easily a child could be turned into an extension of someone else's legend. Golf, in that context, was not just a sport. It was a refusal. He practiced. He dreamed of competing. He followed tournaments on television. He pictured a future that did not require him to dance like anyone, sing like anyone, or carry anyone's unfinished story. For a stretch of years, that future felt possible. The club stayed in his hands. The stage stayed at a distance. The boy who would later be asked to become Michael Jackson on screen was, first, a child trying to choose a quieter kind of excellence. Then the bloodline did what bloodlines do. It waited. The resemblance was already there. The quiet intensity was already there. The way he moved when he thought no one was watching was already there. Family members noticed it in small, private moments. A gesture, a pause, a stillness that felt familiar in a way that was hard to explain. Jaafar himself was still looking toward the course. He still believed he could live beside the Jackson name without being swallowed by it. That belief was honest. It was also incomplete. Because a child can run from a last name, he cannot erase it. He can fill his days with fairways and scores and the clean logic of a game that rewards only what he can control. The house will still be there when he comes home. The uncles will still be there. The photographs will still be there. The history will still sit in the walls. And somewhere inside that history, the unspoken feeling that had already begun to gather around him would keep growing. This one carries it too. Jaafar did not ask for that feeling. He did not audition for it. He tried to live as if it were not there. That is what makes the later story sharper. The boy who tried hardest to escape the name was the same boy the name would one day refuse to release. The golf clubs would not stay in his hands forever. The fairways would not remain his first ambition. But in those Encino years, before the phone rang, before the cameras, before the world decided it had always known, Jaafar Jackson was still doing the one thing that made him different from the legend he would later have to wear. I was trying to get away. Chapter 2. The Turning Point at 12. July 25, 2008. Jaafar Jackson turned 12. The golf clubs were still in the picture. The fairways were still the life he told himself he wanted. Then the resistance began to crack. It did not happen like a movie scene with a single lightning strike. It happened in smaller, harder-to-ignore moments. A record would start in another room at Havenhurst, and his body would answer before he decided to move. A beat would lock in, and his shoulders would find it. In his bedroom, he would try a turn, then another, then stay there longer than a boy who claimed he was done with the family business should have stayed. Dance was no longer something happening around him. It was happening through him. Music came the same way. He enrolled in structured piano lessons and sat with the unglamorous work: scales, chord progressions, theory. He listened the way a serious student listens, not the way a famous nephew is supposed to listen. He covered Sam Cooke and Marvin Gaye in his room, studying phrasing, breath, the way a voice can sit on a line and make it feel like confession. He was not being pushed onto a stage. No one stood over him with a stopwatch the way the older Jacksons had been trained. That difference mattered. The generation before him had been built. Jaafar came to it on his own, and that is exactly why it felt dangerous. When a Jackson discovers the gift without being shoved toward it, the gift is usually real. His father noticed. Jermaine had spent a lifetime inside studios, arrangements, and the machinery of hit records. Around this same stretch, when Jaafar was 12 or 13, he began putting his son closer to the work itself. Producers, songwriters, the slow mechanics of how a track is built. One moment stayed with Jaafar for years. Jermaine asked him to perform a Michael Jackson song in front of Michael. Jaafar was terrified. He did not yet know if he had a voice. He did not know if he could sing. The request turned a private curiosity into a test he had not asked for. After that, the studio visits increased. He watched how songs were made instead of only hearing the finished thing leak through the walls of Encino. He started performing covers at family gatherings. He played piano for relatives. The stage, which he had treated like a trap, began to look like a place where he could tell the truth. He still loved films. He still loved the idea of disappearing into a story. He still had not decided he wanted to be an actor. What he had decided, almost against his own plan, was that the golf course would no longer be enough. Then the calendar turned again. On June 25, 2009, Michael Jackson died. Jaafar was 1 month shy of 13. The house that had always been loud became a different kind of loud. Grief, cameras, questions. A family that had lived in public was forced even further into the open. A 12-year-old in that house does not get to remain only a nephew. He becomes a witness. The boy who had been trying to outrun the bloodline now had to live inside the aftermath of it. The turning point was not a single afternoon. It was the year he turned 12, the year music stopped being background, the year a father put him in front of the most famous man in the family, and the summer the king of pop left the world. After that, the clubs receded. The microphone came closer. Jaafar could later say he chose music. The truer sentence is that music chose a date, and he finally stopped pretending he could refuse it. Chapter 3. The Memories That Never Left. Before the death, before the role, before the world decided Jaafar had always been obvious, there were ordinary days that later became the most important footage in his head. Michael would come to Havenhurst, not as a spectacle, as an uncle. There were family game days, the kind of loud, messy afternoons that do not look like history while they are happening. The children played, the adults sat. The compound, for a few hours, felt less like a brand and more like a house. Jaafar remembered those visits the way a nephew remembers them, not the way a biographer would write them. Michael was present. He laughed. He was simply there. Neverland was the other room in that memory. Jaafar visited the ranch as a child and ran through it the way a child is supposed to run through a place built like a dream. Hide and seek across gardens and amusement park corners. The carousel. The small train that circled the property. Movies in the private theater, the one with its own concession stand. Too much candy. Rides until the day tilted. These were not abstract stories about a distant celebrity. They were warm, specific, physical memories. Grass, lights, sugar, the sound of a train, the feeling of being chased and not wanting the game to end. To the public, Michael Jackson was untouchable. Untouchable is a word that erases a person. To Jaafar, he was Uncle Michael, playful, warm, present, the adult who liked spending time with nieces and nephews and did not need the rest of the planet in the room for the afternoon to count. That distinction never left him. It is the difference between studying an icon and remembering a man. He did not have a long adulthood of conversations with his uncle. He was 12 when Michael died. The archive of their time together is a child's archive. Games, rides, movies, holidays, the feeling of being allowed to be small in a place the world treated as myth. Years later he would say those times were wonderful. He would also say that if he could have asked his uncle anything after choosing music, he would have asked about the career itself. The questions arrived too late. The memories did not. That is why the later phone call carried two weights at once. When Graham King eventually reached him, when the role of a lifetime appeared with no acting experience attached to it, Jaafar was not only being asked to imitate the most famous entertainer on earth. He was being asked to put on the face of the man who had played hide and seek with him. The same memories that gave him an advantage, the walk, the warmth, The private sense of who Michael was when the cameras were gone also became the heaviest responsibility. Get it wrong and you are not only failing a legend, you are disturbing a childhood. After June 25, 2009, those days at Neverland and those game afternoons at Havenhurst stopped being present tense. They became the last true pictures. Jaafar grew up. He released music. He stood in front of cameras for reality television. He tried again and again to be his own person. The memories stayed. They stayed in the way a first home stays. They stayed in the way a voice stays after the room goes quiet. Years later, when he finally had to become Michael on a film set, he would use books, footage, journals, coaches, and the brutal repetition of dance until his feet failed. He would also use something no other actor could buy: the knowledge of what his uncle felt like from the inside of the family on an ordinary day before the world turned him into a monument. That is the part the public never saw. That is the part Jaafar carried whether he wanted the throne or not. Chapter 4. The Industry That Looked Away. In 2019, Jaafar Jackson stepped into the public lane he had once tried to avoid. He released his debut single, Got Me Singing, an R&B track with a Brazilian funk influence that stood apart from the usual pop release. The music video was filmed on a location in the Vidigal favela in Rio de Janeiro, giving the song a visual energy that matched its sound. Within months, it gathered more than 3 million YouTube views. Blogs noticed. Playlists noticed. For a moment, it looked as if the quiet nephew had found a path that belonged only to him. Behind the single sat a full-length album titled Famous. Jaafar had been developing it throughout 2019, writing, recording, and refining tracks with the kind of focus he once gave to a golf swing. He spoke optimistically about a spring or summer 2020 release. Then the industry hesitated. The concern was not talent. The concern was resemblance. Executives and label voices worried that his vocal style sat too close to Michael Jackson's distinctive tone. They feared market confusion. They feared the weight of comparison. They feared that audiences would hear the nephew and only measure him against the uncle. The album stayed locked in the vault. The tracks never received a proper release. Once again, the world looked at Jaafar and chose not to see what was already present. In 2020, he followed with a second single, Confused, a darker, more atmospheric track that leaned into late-night R&B and drew comparisons to The Weeknd as well as Michael's 1990s work. It did not match the viral reach of the debut, but it showed he was still pushing forward. In 2021, he appeared alongside his uncle Tito Jackson in the music video for Love One Another, standing on a professional set with a veteran of the family for the first time. The industry had already delivered its quiet verdict on the album. Jaafar kept working anyway. Producer Graham King had already spent 2 years searching. He had looked at nearly 200 actors from different countries and backgrounds for the role of Michael Jackson. He needed someone who could carry the physical presence, the vocal texture, and the emotional weight of the most famous entertainer of the modern era. Then he met Jaafar. They spoke first over Zoom. Later they met in person for a longer conversation. King later said the feeling was the same as the moment Rami Malek walked into his office for Bohemian Rhapsody, an overwhelming sense of rightness that did not need further explanation. Jaafar had no formal acting experience. His only previous screen credit was a reality television appearance years earlier. He had never studied dramatic technique. He had never stood on a film set as a trained actor. What he carried instead was blood, private memory, and an uncanny ability to inhabit the man he had once called uncle. King asked the direct question. Jaafar answered without performance. Never. I never wanted to be an actor. The honesty did not end the conversation. King and director Antoine Fuqua continued to pursue him. They saw something in his natural presence, in the physical resemblance, and in the way he already understood Michael's mannerisms without having to invent them from footage alone. Some things cannot be taught in a classroom. They can only be recognized. King recognized them. Chapter 5. The Year of Silence. After the role was offered, Jaafar did something that revealed how seriously he took the responsibility. He kept the news to himself for nearly a full year. He did not tell his mother. He did not tell his father. He did not tell the wider family. He wanted to feel ready before the secret became public property. The training that followed was not gentle. He worked daily with acting and dialect coaches to match Michael's speaking voice and pitch. He rehearsed complex dance routines for hours until a single movement sat correctly. He danced until his feet bled or went numb. He returned to Havenhurst and lived there during the preparation period, sleeping in different rooms, absorbing the emotional energy of the house where so much of the family history had already happened. He trained in the same dance studio Michael had once used to prepare for world tours. He studied performance footage with an obsessive focus that left little room for casual life. When his mother finally visited the set for the first time, the surprise was complete. She had not known. The reveal became one of the emotional markers of the entire process. Jaafar was not simply learning a character for a camera. He was answering a quiet question the family had carried for years without ever stating it out loud: whether the bloodline still held someone who could stand in that particular light. In January 2023, the announcement finally broke. Jaafar posted a black and white photograph from a rehearsal session and wrote that he was humbled and honored to bring his uncle's story to life. The news moved quickly through entertainment outlets and social media. Jaafar Jackson, Michael's mother, offered the public endorsement that settled many doubts inside the family and among fans. She said clearly, "Jaafar embodies my son." Prince Jackson, Michael's eldest son, expressed strong support as well, later saying that seeing Jaafar on set in full costume felt like seeing his father again. Principal photography and the long post-production process followed. On April 24, 2026, the film Michael, directed by Antoine Fuqua from a screenplay by John Logan, reached theaters. The supporting cast included Coleman Domingo as Joe Jackson and Nia Long as Jaafar Jackson. The film blended Jaafar's own live vocal performances with Michael's original recordings from the master tapes. Critical response to the overall film was mixed, but the response to Jaafar's performance was broadly positive. Reviewers noted the physical transformation, the emotional control, and the commitment visible in both the quiet scenes and the major performance sequences. Audiences saw what the family had already felt: the quiet nephew who once preferred golf clubs, the young man who had tried to step outside the name, the one who never asked for the throne. On screen, he looked like the right choice had been waiting the entire time. Chapter 6. What Michael already knew. Michael Jackson never stood in front of cameras and declared that his nephew Jaafar would one day become him on a movie screen. He never needed to make that kind of public prediction. The evidence had already been present in quieter forms. In the blood, in the childhood days at Neverland, in the way Jaafar moved when he believed no one was watching, in the private intensity that family members had noticed long before any producer placed a call. The world spent years looking past it. The industry hesitated when the voice sounded too familiar. The public treated him as a secondary Jackson, a supporting character in a larger legend. Only when the performance arrived in 2026 did the larger audience finally stop looking away. By then, Jaafar was 30 years old. He had become engaged to Maddie Simpson in February 2025 after a relationship that began in 2016. New film opportunities opened. Music remained part of his path. The story that began with a boy trying to escape the name ended with the same boy carrying it in the most public way possible. Sometimes the person meant to carry the legacy is not the one who wants it most. It is the one who tried hardest to leave it behind and discovered he could not. The world simply took longer to listen. So what do you think? Was Jaafar always the one, or did the world simply refuse to see him until the cameras forced the truth into the open? Michael never made a public prediction. He never needed to. The resemblance, the intensity, the quiet way Jaafar carried himself, it was already there. The industry looked away. Most of us looked away. Now that the performance exists, the question sits differently. Was this destiny, blood, or just the right person finally being recognized at the right time? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me which moment hit you hardest: the golf years, the secret training, or the day Catherine said he embodied her son. If this story made you look at the Jackson legacy differently, hit like and subscribe. There are more stories still waiting.